Okay, it is Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, and this is the regular meeting of the Willington Board of Education. And we'll call this meeting to order. Start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would join me, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We start and end our meetings with time for the public to provide comment to us. So if there's anyone who would like to participate and present to speak at this time, we ask that you raise your hand or you come on the visual screen by clicking start video and raise your physical hand. We ask that you start with your name and address for the record. I recognize Arthur Christensen has his hand raised, so we'll start with you, Arthur.
Thank you. Arthur Christensen, 14 Birch Meadow Lane. Since I was not permitted to at the town meeting a couple of weeks ago, all I want to do is just say thank you to everybody who came out and voted for me for the Region 19 board seat. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who is present to speak? Okay, not seeing any hands. We will move on. There will be more time at the end of the meeting to do that. Next on the agenda is the chairman's report. Not a lot for me to say this month, except that tomorrow night on the 9th is an important presentation from the school building committee at Hall Middle School at 7 p.m. It's also going to be cast on Zoom for people who want to join from home. You can find that information on the Facebook page for the school building committee, also on the Town of Willington's website. You can see the agenda. The link will be there too. We encourage people to come out and learn more about this presentation. I will certainly be joining by Zoom if I can to learn more, since I'm not on the school building committee and I would like to hear what you guys have all been working on. So we encourage you to come and become informed. By the start of this is a long process. It's a good chance for us to learn more about what you've all been doing. Did I miss anything, the folks on the committee that we need to? I got it right? Okay. Oh, it's going to be recorded. So if you can't attend, you can watch usually the next day on the town's Facebook page, not Facebook, the town's YouTube page is where the recordings show up, so that this way, even if you can't be there in person or on Zoom, you can watch the recording afterwards.
And Michelle, this will be one of many. This is just the first large one. So one of many.
Okay. Is there a schedule yet with when those meetings are going to be?
It's on the next agenda to identify.
Okay, great. Okay, next is communications. Anything to report? Okay, moving on. Number 5 is our superintendent's report. Take it away, Phil.
So I think I'm going to be relatively quick tonight. The general update. So I just want to give you some quick things. The non-lapsing fund year, that request we made to the Board of Finance was accepted. They took the full amount. And so that's great news. So all that money went into your non-lapsing fund, and you're basically pretty close to your capacity for what you can have right now. The clubs at HMS have started up. They're going very, very well. I had to double check my figures again today because I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but we have cross country, we have outdoor explorations, we have student council, we have the GSA club, we have chess, and we have drama. We have 100 students participating in clubs at Hall. We're providing transportation. 100 students is just, that's more than half. We only have 175, something like that at Hall. So just a tremendous number. And thanks to all the folks that have stepped up to operate clubs. We have both parents running clubs and staff members. So that's great. You should have all received an email. I just wanted to put it out to the public. We will be doing a special data presentation, just typically like we did last year. It will be December 5th, December 5 at 7 p.m. And I think as long as Michelle, you're okay with it, it will be the same format. It will be really the only item on the agenda. It'll be that data presentation with some Q&A again, just like we did last time. So that's on the list. I wanted to share with you that yesterday I met with the ARPA Commission. and formally presented the things that we had asked for, the playground equipment for students. It was a few $1,000s. We had asked for the rubber surfacing for about $90,000, and we had asked for the extra kind of educational experiences for kids for $20,000. All three were approved by the ARPA Commission. They will go to town meeting, I was told, in approximately 6 weeks. And so that'll be important information for you to share. Two final things. I will tell you that people ask about what we do on Veterans Day. We do go to school on Veterans Day. However, we are putting on programs. I will tell you that the outpouring of the number of people that want to attend these programs is tremendous. The elementary school has a huge program plan just because of the sheer number of people that want to attend. So that's exciting. That's 9 o'clock on Friday morning. And then the last thing I wanted to share was, and I've seen this, some of the hubbub out there has been around EO Smith, around local districts. It is impacting us a little bit, is around buses. And so there is a known, just like every position that's out there right now, there's a known shortage of bus drivers and subs. We have experienced that in the last couple weeks, and our bus company, our bus drivers, our local bus drivers have been covering routes. We've sent out communications to let people know there's going to be some adjustments and some blending of routes. Obviously, I will stay on top of that. I've been in communication with the bus company and the drivers. And if it, I will let you know if it gets to a point where it's something that is impacting our daily transportation. So that's kind of what's in the general update. As far as staffing goes, I only have one change. We hired Ariana McCarthy. She's a paraprofessional. And then the legislative update. I sent I get legislative updates from several attorneys, from CABE. And what I did was I tried to put them into a really simple format, and actually Brenda did most of this work for me, to put them in a format for you just to have a snapshot of them. And I believe that you got a copy of those. And so in your email, there should be, it's 3 pages long. That's in the actual CABE update is a booklet. It's numerous pages. And it's just an update on what legislation is passed, what's coming forward. And what we tried to do is just highlight in the 3 pages that we shared with you some of the changes, whether it's around model curriculum, which they pushed out a year to 24. There's some things about children's mental health, the duty-free lunch, which we already knew about. There's just a whole boatload of things that are in there. One of the ones that I just want to make sure you are aware of that we will be doing a program for is there's a Children's Mental Health Day now. It is May 26th. And they are saying it's Get Outside and Play for Children's Mental Health Day. We do have school that day. We will be doing something special that day as far as that goes. So any questions on any of the items in the legislative update? I know it's kind of a book. And if you prefer to individually contact me around any specific ones, or you want more information or have some questions around it, I'm glad to answer those questions as well.
I see that Donna has her hand raised. There you go.
Actually, I had a ton of questions, so I will try and reach out to you individually. But the one particular question I had, since you brought up the Children's Mental Health Day, it talked about certain exercises. And I tried to look up what they felt those certain exercises should be, because I was kind of wondering if this might be able to be combined with like field day or something like that, or if there are certain exercises they feel that our children should be doing more regularly, maybe they should be incorporated into PE or something else that's going on. But since I couldn't find what they are, I'm going to ask that you let us know what those are, even if you just send out an email so we don't have to spend a lot of time talking about it.
I'd be curious to know myself, Donna, but I will tell you it's the weekend before the road race, so I know that we plan on tying something into that. This one kind of came out of nowhere for us, so
Yeah.
I will let you know if there's specifics that that we have to do.
We still have a number of months ahead for that, so plenty of time to discuss that going forward. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, then we will move ahead. Next on the agenda is the financial reports. Oh, sorry, food services account.
No, I think you had it right.
Am I
Oh,
looking
you're
at the-
right. Sorry, I missed that.
Okay.
I missed that. Ooh, this is moved around on my agenda. All right, so let me just give you an update here. You know that we're providing free meals right now. We were given $67,000 by the state and feds to provide free lunches. We've had a great usage. We expect that we're going to be burning through that money by the end of December. There's a calculator that we get, so we'll be through the 67,000 by December 31st. And I will tell you that we're serving approximately 150 students daily at Hall and about 160 students at Center. That's on average. That's a high number of meals, which is good. Our current free and reduced number at Center is 44%, and at Hall it's 36%. So our average is around 40. We have phone calls in because typically all meals are free when you hit 40%, but we haven't heard that yet. So sometimes it's only when you have that number at the start of the year, which we did not. What I'll tell you is we anticipate that it would cost about $94,000 of our school lunch fund to basically provide free meals, lunch and breakfast based upon our current numbers through the end of the year. It's about $890 a day on average of what we've been doing. That does not include the reimbursement that we get. The food services account has about $135,000 in it. And we have another $38,000 that we're getting back for reimbursements for the meals that we've already served in September and October. So that account is very healthy. It's the healthiest it's ever been. And so, you know, we have the foods and the funds in the food services account. And really what I'm going to suggest is that you utilize those funds and extend the free meals, lunch and breakfast through February of 23. It'd be about $40,000 based upon our current usage. Donna, is assistant business manager, Tish, Donna as the business manager, Stephanie, the food service director, and I all agree that account is healthy. And this is a good use of funds, especially with our numbers the way they are. And obviously we would continue to receive reimbursements on the meals that we have. So, you know, as free meals. And so it's something that I think that really the board should approve. And that if you're going to make a motion, it would be to continue providing free breakfast and lunch at Center and Hall through February 28th, 2023, and utilizing the funds from the food services account. You have to take action on it tonight if you want to do that. And the reason why is because we need to give parents, this is part of the rules, we need to give the parents 30 days notice. And you would not have time with that if you did your board meeting in December. And so what we would do is if you make that motion tonight and it passes, we would review it again with the financial report data in January to just see where we're at. You could always extend it another month at that point or extend it beyond that. But I'm just recommending at this point, take a couple months at a time, see where we're at, especially with the cost of food. But you absolutely have the funds to do this.
Thank you, Phil. Go ahead, Ann.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue to provide free lunch and breakfast for our students at Center and Hall School until February of 1923 using the money from the food service account.
Thank you, Ann. Do I have a second?
Can you just say through February, please, Ann?
Yes, through February 23rd of 23. the end of February of 2023.
Perfect.
Thank you. Donna, I see your hand.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Laura?
So a question, clarification. So right now, we are using our funds to provide free meals, breakfast and lunch for all of our children at Holland Center. And it comes out 150 at Hall, 160 at Center. Students who are on free and reduced meals, I missed the Hall, it was like 46%, Center was 44%.
36 and 44. Yeah.
36, okay. And, all right. Altogether, that's over 40% now. And if all of our students in the school district, if it's over 40%, then the feds and states will provide free meals for all our students.
That's how you qualify, and typically that's the number that they look at. We're just checking to see, because sometimes it's the start of school what your numbers are, and we were not at that number when we started school. So this is one of those weird things, and Michelle, you might have some of this information, I don't know, but Laura, this is one of those weird things I think operates on the last year. So like it might mean next year we're at I know it's at the 40%, and that's when we would qualify.
Okay, so I just wanted clarification of how the whole thing works. So that's part of it. So it's
Right, Michelle? Sorry.
Right. So when you reach a certain threshold, they no longer require you to only provide those free lunches to
For those
certain kids.
students.
They make it, the entire district is
Right.
eligible all at once. But again, this is a federal program. The types of red tape that go with it are incredibly complicated. So it would not at all surprise me if they do verification once per year for the year before, because it takes them that long to do it right and to then reimburse you. I don't know exactly. And occasionally the federal government does allow waivers. So there might be a waiver that we could apply for that said, we were just a little late starting, can't you do something? But again, it might take 6 months to get a waiver passed after we asked for it. So that's probably more for next year than for this year.
okay. That's I'm just trying to understand how the whole thing works.
Yeah.
And is it by district or is it by school?
District.
It is
When
by
they,
district.
when they do that piece, it's by district.
Okay. Shoot, I had another question. Let me keep thinking because I lost it. So Donna has a question. Let her go.
I will quantify that unless they've changed the rules in the past 3 or 4 years, because a lot of things changed over COVID, and I have not looked at those regulations recently.
Yeah,
Okay.
But I
that's
believe
where,
it's district level.
and
I-
they're giving a lot of funds, Laura. So they're like the 67,000 that we got was another grant, and we've heard there's potential for more funds coming that may offset this further. It's
Yeah.
a day at a time.
Okay. And that was my other question. So we're providing for all our students, which is great. The ones that qualify for free and reduced, that's the ones that we get reimbursed for from state and feds. Okay. All right. And that happens
Monthly,
monthly. Okay.
although monthly is like 3 months after the fact.
Yeah. In arrears, like in 3-month arrears, right?
Right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Donna?
I just have one reservation.
Mhm.
I'm going to assume that once the vote is taken, this happens, and assuming that happens, I would just want to make sure that it's really clear to the families that we've extended it through the end of February, and then we have to reassess it. I don't want people to assume that it's going to constantly be extended because the situation may change and we may not be able to. I mean, obviously, if we could, we would, but I just want it to be clear that this is an extension, and I'm not really sure how it would need to be worded, but I just don't want people to be presumptuous and then feel like they're caught short, that they didn't realize that they might end up having to pay for their kids' food in March.
No, the communication needs to be very clear. I agree, Donna, and we'll do a letter to all families to let them know that. When it would be extended through and when the board would be evaluating that again. So, and we did a similar thing at the beginning of the year, and we would just do an update with that exactly that information.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
I'm thrilled to hear that you have so many students undertaking this now that it's free, that I think we typically don't think of those prices as being a deterrent, but the fact that when it's free, so many more people take advantage of it. It really speaks to both the quality of and hard work of our food service staff to make sure that we're able to provide meals that are nutritious and interesting to our students. But I'm thrilled that we've had such a high level of students who are eating that. So that's fabulous. Anything else? If not, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of extending the free lunch and breakfast through the end of February signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
And that was unanimous. So we will let that motion pass and move on next to the financial report.
All right, so this is the financial report for as of November 1. We are honestly, we're in really good financial standing right now. We're in a good financial situation. There's a couple things. Number one, in program 2, just staffing costs for us, which is one of the reasons we have a larger balance remaining there. And that's before the title grants are applied. So that's really good news. The second item there, and it jumped off the page, and I had to literally, after I climbed off the floor, was I had to go and talk to Donna and to say, is the number for fringe right? And she said yes. And so basically, typically around this time of year, we have maybe a ballpark of $100,000 in that line. And it is significantly higher because the folks that left the district to go elsewhere took benefits, and oftentimes it was family benefits. And then the folks that came in took waivers. It's a huge, huge savings. Now, what I'll tell you is, obviously that can change. If someone leaves mid-year and someone new comes in and they take benefits, obviously that number goes down, right? And there's still other things in that account. Subs come out of that account, but that's a good amount of money. I am already in the monitoring process of that line, and particularly looking at end of the year funds and looking at, if this remains, what can we do to offset our budget next year utilizing these funds, because that's just a large sum of money. And you know, we can make some pretty safe predictions come January, come budget time. You know, think about extending a contract for Novus, you know, where we have multi-year contracts, things like that. We're starting a list should that number remain the same. But it's just one of those budget, you know, angel things that come through that, like, holy cow, how'd that happen? It's just the way it worked out. So questions about the budget?
That's good to hear, because some years it's the opposite. So
That's correct.
It's nice to have the balance to that. I see Donna's hand.
Yeah, so a couple questions. One is, if a staff member who's waived participation has some sort of, I'm going to call it a life-changing event, they can then change that, can't they?
They can. They can have what's basically like an emergency, and in the next month they can access health insurance. Absolutely.
Okay, and then the other thing is, I know last year we ended up going over our fuel usage, and we ended up paying it the market rate. So we might want to keep that in mind too, because the market rate is, at least as of today, is significantly higher.
Absolutely, I agree, Donna. And that's why I say, like, you know, we have to keep this in mind, but it's a good thing to long-term for us to think about what we can spend some of these funds on. I actually, one of the projects I'll tell you that is in CIP, and it's kind of pushed off a little bit, but talking about plumbing at both schools, we have some plumbing projects that really need to happen. And, you know, it's something that if we could use some of these funds to take care of some of those things, it's on the list. But I agree, the fuel should be on the list. You know, some of those things that we can be thoughtful about using these funds wisely, I think it's going to be, you know me, I'm going to be transparent about this. I will share kind of the list and what it is and why, if we get to that point.
I do want to urge caution because a lot of times these things can be anticipated, and then, with one change and one outplacement or two
correct.
outplacements, we've seen the opposite happen where we've benefited when that has changed. But there are things we are mandated to do by the state that we have no control over. So it's nice to see this as potential, and we'll certainly talk more about it later in the year when we have more information about it. Brianna, I saw your hand up.
I was just going to ask if there are already building substitutes hired, or if that is something that maybe could be considered.
There are not. And if you do a building substitute, you end up offering benefits. But it's definitely, we have a consistent group of subs, but it's something that it is on our list that we thought about considering, Brianna. I'm a little nervous about doing it at this point for exactly the reason Michelle just said, with an outplacement. One residential outplacement, that whole pocket of money is gone. Doesn't happen often, but it can happen. But come the end of December and your January meeting, I do think if this is still in that range, we ought to consider something like that. Even if it's one person that we just have here every day. And I've already given both principals the ability to bring in subs when they need them, whether it's to cover duties and, just to make sure teachers have the time with all of the things that they have going on right now, to make sure that they have the time they need to do those things. So it's on our list.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you for that, Phil. Next, we have on the agenda the student activity account update. I know that Herb had specifically requested this one. So if we felt that we wanted to have an opportunity to do this with Herb present, did I say Phil requested it? Herb requested it. Sorry.
You said it right.
Yeah, okay. I was looking at you, and sometimes I say the person I'm looking at. We could either go over this tonight, or we can wait and hold this till next month, if you think that that would be, in deference to his questions that he had about this.
I'm going to make a suggestion to you, Michelle, and I'm going to say, go through it quickly tonight. And one of the reasons why is we've been using Quicken and Excel. And I have had meetings with both principals and their assistants, as well as Donna in the business office. I'm done with Quicken. I'm done with Excel. We're going to move this over to iVisions, to our financial software. It's the right move. Easier to print reports, easier to monitor the funding. And I'm not worried about the balances, and I can show you that. They're both healthy, but I'm looking for some consistency, and there's really not consistency in some of the naming and who gets an account and who doesn't. But this is an audited, both of these are audited programs. And so I'll just give you a really fast, example of what I'm talking about. In this center school example, it says field trips. Well, that includes pre-K through 4th grade. When you go to Hall School, everybody has their own line. So which one's easier to track? Obviously this one. So that's something that I want to adjust, and I've already met about the titles for them. They're going to build it out in the software. We're going to condense some of these. Some of these have been around since, I don't know, since I started teaching in early 2000. Like they're not being used. They could be combined. We don't have soda machines anymore. So I would rather, you can see the report, the balances are there, but I'm going to come back to you and say, here's the new programs. Here's the new, lines. This is how it's going to be tracked. Just moving forward, just so you have that information. Is that?
Great. So that's wonderful. So this is an introduction, and we will come back and revisit this again sometime in the next couple of months, once we've got it transferred over to the new system, and we can then have more apples to apples comparisons.
Perfect.
Are there any questions? Go ahead, Laura.
I know we want to get through this quickly and we're going to revisit it, but I just have to ask about the PJs.
Oh, this?
Yes.
So I think it's December 7th this year for CCMC. We participate as a district in the PJ Day. This was actually started by a principal in her school in Coventry and Mary Beth Moyer, and she's actually been our interim a couple times, and it was one of her students. And all the funds that basically people donate to wear PJs to school one day, and all of the funds are donated to CCMC. And last year we donated thousands.
Okay, that's great. I saw PJ in there and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
That's why this is so big, to be honest with you, because it was from both schools. And that's why I said, like, these things should be broken out. Like, center school should have their own donation, HMS should have theirs. But it's the PJ Day.
Okay, thank you.
Great cause.
Okay, thanks for that update then. Moving on next, hang on, let me see the agenda. Is the CIP plan under new business.
Drop all these real quick. Okay. So I went through, I had conversations with both maintenance custodians and principals and just said, go through it, give me your list. What else do you need? We have quite a list that are of things that are not on here. I don't think it's the year to add them. What I do think, just because of the school building committee, they are things that are in the Fryer report. There's things like brick repointing, ADA things like a lift or an elevator. That doesn't exist in center school, things like that. The playground service mulch is on here if that's redone. What I want to remind folks is, and I hate to say it this way, I break this into 5 years, just like the CIP group does. The only one that really matters is year one. Years 2 through 5 help them plan some, but when they shift things over, new priorities come up typically, and things are adjusted. So the one change, and this is a huge cost change, is the landing ramp replacement. We had, I think, 45,000 in there. This is when you're at Hall School, the ramp that is concrete that leads into the side of the building. We had an estimate in there for $45,000 replace it. We have one quote right now from a reputable contractor, and just with the price of demolition and hours and concrete, it came in at $95,000. Again, after I climbed off the floor, I talked to Troy from Public Works and just said, can we look at this again? This is the number that we have in there right now. And he's going to see, we're going to take a peek at it together again to see if there's something else that he believes we can do. But again, the number that came in from the contractor is what we're seeing a going rate for just how expensive some of this work is. Everything else, for the most part, is the same. What I will point out, I did not update prices on a lot of these things because contractors don't want to give you quotes if you're not putting it in year one. But what I will tell you is I did update the center school roof cost and the Hall School roof cost, simply because we're working with Colliers International, and Scott Pellman has the current average price of the roof for our square footage. And he gave me those numbers, and he's looking at $850,000 for the section at Hall and $1.2 million for, $850,000 for center and $1.2 million for Hall. So those were updated. And then the project I was talking about earlier, that was the plumbing project. Part of that is that $36,000 at the end of CES here. But I do have some cabinetry and plumbing at Hall School as well, that we could build into it. Again, I think in year one, the priority should be around safety, and maintaining the buildings in an appropriate way. There's, I'm not impacting infrastructure. I did not put in here the patching, but I'm glad to do the same thing. We do not have leaks currently. We've been addressing anything. We had one roof drain that was leaking. It was original. We've done the roof drain repairs out of our regular maintenance budget. If you want a safety net in here, you could put $10,000 in for patching, 5 for each building. I didn't put it in here because I wanted your input on that. But really, those are the only 2 items, honestly, that I think should be in year 1. Everything else, I think we're doing okay. We're maintaining things through our maintenance budget, and we should wait to see what happens with the building project.
So the CIP budget is meant to be for items $10,000 or more. So even though patching in 2 places, because of the way we separate them, I don't think they belong here. I'd rather see that in our regular operations maintenance budget. And if it means we have to increase that budget during our budget process in the spring, then we do. But I think that's where that belongs, because that's something we know we have to have available to us to fix. When it happens, we fix it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to have to nickel and dime the CIP. That's meant for the big dollar items.
The other thing, Michelle, and I think that's a good point, is that you have a non-lapsing fund for a reason. It's an emergency. And I hate budgeting for things not knowing if we'll need it. Look at, if the roofs start leaking tomorrow, you're going to hear from me and I'm going to say, I don't have the funds to patch what they're asking for. You have the funds to do it, and we can turn it around very quickly. So I think that provides you a buffer without hitting the taxpayer for funds within the budget or within the CIP plan.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have questions? So Phil, we'll revisit this as part of our budget cycle.
You should vote on it, because I have to do the paperwork
Okay.
for the CIP group, and we submit it sometime in December. So if these are the projects where you want, and again, they can adjust them wherever they want. So.
Right. But for what we would send to CIP, we should vote tonight so they have it so they can start their work.
Correct.
Okay. Donna?
Yeah, I'm a little unclear about the sinks and the plumbing. And then you mentioned also at HMS. Should HMS sinks and plumbing be added? And should that $36,000 be moved to year 1 for a center, and whatever the amount is for HMS being put in year 1?
So when this 36,000 was put in, it was put in for a group of projects. Some of them are in worse shape than others. And so what we've been doing, and I have already approved some plumbing work this year at Hall School, they're repairing things within their maintenance budgets. And same thing at Center School. This would be all of them. And so this is one of those things that if you have funds at the end of the year, I would propose that you do some cabinetry work, and it's really around the face of the cabinets with a veneer that's peeling, and then the plumbing underneath the sinks. It is not every sink, but there are some sinks that need to be taken care of. Things like, and I'll give you the example. The work that was just done at Hall was done during the half-day professional development day. We had to turn off the water to the entire building simply because there's no shutoff valves in that area. And so, this would put a shutoff valve underneath each of those sinks. It would replace the plumbing that's corroded. And it's just a process that, it's in there. It's a priority. It's going to be done at some point, whether it's through a renovation, through a new building, or through CIP, or just the end of the year project this year. But if something happens plumbing right now, we're fixing it as we go.
So I guess the question is, I don't think when it comes to shutoff valves, I don't understand why we're taking the risk that something isn't going to be okay. And if we've already repaired several of them, so it's really not $36,000 anymore. I think it just needs to be done, whether it goes through CIP or not, because we don't want to have classrooms down or buildings down because of water damage. And I would hate to see what the insurance company would say when we know there's a risk and we haven't been proactive in dealing with it.
Yeah, that's up to the board. If you want it sooner than later or however you want it.
Just a note, remember, this is not our plan. This is our proposal to give to the CIP committee, which is then their plan that they then give to the Board of Finance. So this is advisory. And I think that being a little more conservative and moving the 36,000 so that we have at least half of it to be able to start on some of the plumbing stuff would not be unreasonable. But it doesn't mean that even if it's put forward in CIP that we can't, say we had extra funding at the end of the year and wanted to go ahead and do it this summer, we could do that too, even if it were in year 2. So we have the option to pay ahead if that were something that were available to us.
I guess my real question is, can it wait? Or should it be done over Christmas break? When the kids aren't in the building, and eliminate the, I don't know what the plumbing looks like, but when you say words like corrosion and we don't have a shutoff valve, as a homeowner, I'm thinking really bad decision. So we're responsible for making sure the buildings are maintained. It seems like that, and if we have the money I don't really care where the money comes from. I'm saying I don't think the project should wait based upon what you just said.
So, we can shut off the water. It's just not at that site. That's typical with older plumbing. It's just a matter of how quickly, if you want to move forward faster than this, if you want to put, and again, that's combined sinks, cabinets, plumbing, that's like whole new cabinetry. My feeling is the plumbing is priority number 1. If I'm not as worried about cabinetry, to be honest with you, because we can buy sheets of high quality plywood, paint them, and they're going to look like good cabinetry fronts on the doors. It's the plumbing piece that we continue to repair. It's just like when we get a pinhole leak in our heating units, whether for steam, we don't wait on those. We do them right away. So you basically have a few choices. 1, you leave it where it is. 2, you move up the plumbing for both. You could create a line for Center and Hall School and do like a $7,500 or 10 grand, whatever it is per building for plumbing repairs on the CIP plan. Or option 3 is really I continue to do it through our budget, and option 4 is I do it sooner than later on a larger scale, and you use non-lapsing funds. Those are kind of your options right now.
Anne?
I see plumbing as a safety issue. If there's something coming through to the children through old pipes, I think it's becoming a safety issue. So I think it should be a priority.
Laura?
Okay. I agree with plumbing being a priority. I think I still don't quite understand the CIP plan thing, because year 1 on here, which is the only one we're looking at, is 2023 to 2024. That's next school year. But we're talking about things that need to be done this school year. Right? When we're talking about the landing ramp replacement.
You're planning for July 1 of 2023, correct?
We're planning for the summer.
Correct.
Okay, so these are projects that would be done in the summer that are put on here, starting in the summer for next year.
Funds are available July 1.
Gotcha.
After the vote, if the vote goes through, there's certain projects like the ramp, I would have to be ready to move in after the vote in May if it passed, so that we could have it in time, because a month to plan a project like that is
not wrong. Okay, so if we're saying that the plumbing is a priority, then it seems that we have to address it in a different way than through the CIP, because putting it here as a priority on CIP would mean we get started on it in the summer. Rather than the way that, I mean, you've been fixing things as they break, basically. But
Why don't we do this then? Because if everyone feels that way, and you want to address it sooner than later, I'd say leave this plan the way it is. Let me come back to you in December with a plumbing overview. Like, I can get a cost for it, I can take pictures, I can show you what I'm talking about, the number we're talking about. And that would allow us potentially to do those repairs over the holiday break, if a plumber is available during that time.
And
That
in
sounds
places where it's more urgent,
Correct. That's what I
this
mean.
36,000 in year 2 is all of the plumbing projects, multiple small plumbing projects altogether, and some of them may be more urgent than others. So I think that plan makes a lot of sense, that we can, but what I would recommend with that is that we move this 36,000 into year 1 for that purpose. So we move this up a year and we see if there's anything that we need to do immediately. So rather than wait to year 2, because we know that for CIP, it's really year 1 is the what's important and most real.
Would that cover both schools, the 36,000, if you're not replacing sinks and cabinets, et cetera?
No, I think what I would do is, if you're gonna adjust that, I do 20 and 20.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have a motion with that adjustment of moving what had been 36,000 in CES classroom sinks, cabinets, and plumbing into 20,000 in year 1 for CES plumbing and 20,000 for HMS plumbing? Is that the
Can we-
only change we want to make to this?
that sounds good to me.
Okay, can you make a motion to that effect then?
I was just gonna ask, can I make the motion of what you just said? I make a motion to accept the CIP plan as is, with the exception of adding 20,000 for plumbing at center and 20,000 plumbing at hall into year 1. Does that cover it?
Yep, and removing the year 2 36.
And removing it and the 36,000 from year 2.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Okay, any additional questions, conversation?
Do we need to make a separate motion at this time, or are we waiting for Phil to get back to us with that plumbing list that he just talked before we?
No, we can move ahead with this vote right now, and then next month we'll have another plumbing discussion at that point
Okay,
because that's unrelated to CIP.
thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the CIP budget as amended in the motion signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, passes unanimously. Moving on to the next item on our agenda is the budget process calendar.
It is that time already. I think it's important that we get these dates out to folks. So I did a draft for you, modeled it after the last couple of years. This is just the simple timeline, probably not as important to you. It's maybe more important to the community, just so they see the process. What's more important to you is this. And so doing the budget, basically a meeting a week, each meeting would be a week apart, and presenting each of the programs, Q&A along the way. This is a workshop model. And then the 14th, sorry, I'm going to fire through this. I'm pretty sure it's that Tuesday night. Yeah, this 6 p.m. would be before your regular board meeting. I just want to make sure I change that date. If you need it. If you don't have any questions, then you could, potentially do this in 3. And just vote on your budget, the regular meeting on the 14th.
Okay. Questions or thoughts about this proposed schedule? Okay, it seems hard to believe that it's coming around again so soon. Where does the time go? So do I have a motion to approve the budget schedule?
Tracy Anderson, I move to approve the budget.
Oh, she got muted.
Oops, you just muted.
Okay, sorry, I'll start again. I think my mouse went over the mute button. I move to approve the 2023-2024 budget workshop calendar.
I'll second Laura Rodriguez.
Okay, thank you both. Any additional questions, concerns, thoughts? Okay, all those in favor of approving the budget calendar as presented, signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. Okay, next is approval of the minutes of our regular meeting on October 11th. Do I have a motion to that effect? I think we're gonna nominate one person to be the official motion maker, and you're gonna be, like, for the day, you're gonna like have to keep your mute off and just go to town, and then we'll rotate so we can have the official motion maker.
So I make a motion that we accept the minutes from
October 11th. Donna, I think your microphone cut out. Your motion to approve the minutes for October 11th, is that right? Okay, we're having a technical difficulty there. Donna, can we hear you at all? Try saying something, Donna, we'll test it.
Can you hear me now?
I can, there it is, okay.
You guys you froze on me like twice.
Okay, technical issues. If you could finish
I
the
make a
motion.
motion that we approve the minutes of the October 11th, 2022 meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Anne.
Thank you, Anne. Comments, amendments, questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the October 11th, 2022 meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next is old business, educational specifications.
Okay, so I had sent this draft out to, I had also sent this draft out to the admin team in its state. I had sent it to both center and school hall school staff. And I also sent it to two local professionals who, one of them who this is his business, and the other person does quite a bit of school construction business. I have feedback from all those folks. And so what I'd like to do is fire through. There are a significant number of changes in green. However, many of them are repetitive. And so what I'll do is I'll fire through, and then maybe the board can ask their questions afterwards. It helps if you share your screen and not just click on the document. Okay. I just need to find a way to move you here because this is not going to work for me. Okay, so I cannot see you. So sorry for making you dizzy. I'm going to move through this pretty quick. Anything in green on here would be new. So the feedback from the professionals, just add and meet acoustical. Ooh, acoustical looks like it's spelled wrong. I didn't check it.
No, that's right.
One C?
Oh, it's 1C. Is it?
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, I
Sorry.
will check that. Acoustical performance standards. Pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to keep firing. So if you want me to stop, just
Can you
holler.
just let me know what page you're on, because I want to find the spot.
It's really hard because my page numbers are so different now, but I will do my best. That was under site on page 6.
Hold on a second.
All right, I just have a question. Are we going to go through all of these and then discuss them and approve them? Is that our purpose here?
We'll approve them all at the end after we've had conversation about them, but
Okay.
I just-
many of them repeat over time. It might make more sense for Phil to run through them, pop back up to the beginning, and then if there are questions, we can go.
Good.
through them
Okay,
at that
all right.
time.
So the second item there was, the question was, are you talking about a separate building with bathrooms in it? Or are you allowing people into the building to use a bathroom? And so what we said was we're going to provide access to use the bathroom, but they will not have public access to the entire school building at that time. So it just allows them to basically go in to use the bathroom. That's all it is. And they wouldn't be able to get anywhere else in the building because those doors would be locked. Okay. These standards have updated recently, 2022, but it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter because what they said was you don't even really need to list these because you just need to say building codes and standards at the time of development. If these change tomorrow, this is outdated. So whatever is current at the time of development, this is what they both said we need to say. So I just struck the other in effect when permitting is approved at the time of development. That's where they both recommended it should be. Again, sorry for scrolling fast. We took out, there was, they pointed out there was another column over here that only had the total square footage, this number in it. And the question was, what in the world's that for? And I said, great point. Let's just eliminate the column. So we did. So we did that throughout. So that's done for all of these. We added the word classroom after pre-K. And the comment was, do you want doors between your classrooms at the lower level? And they both said they've seen both ways. If there's a lot of collaboration, it's a good thing to have. That's typical for pre-K. So I just wrote in here, consider having the classrooms connected via a door. All right. And can you wait till the end, or you want to do questions throughout? That's
I
up to
would,
Michelle. You're muted, Michelle.
It's going to be much easier to do it all at once at the end. So run through it and then we'll come back.
Okay. The sinks, and this is a repetitive statement. The comment by these professionals was you need solid surface countertops. It's going to last you significantly longer. Stop doing laminate countertops. They get scratched and you can't repair them. It peels. So we made that change significantly throughout this document. Also, they said it's very common for in-room drinking fountain now with bottle fillers. I thought only hallways. They said nope, all everywhere. Why have them leave the classroom if they don't need to? So I made that adjustment throughout. This is another one that is all done throughout. There was a lot of feedback from both of them about, I said, well, this is where it used to say the desk that was built in. And they said a built-in locks you in to what you build and you can not change it. And it impacts the layout of the room. And so the comment was make it so you can either do a stand-up, a mobile, or a conventional adjustable workstation. I did that throughout, and I have to take their experience on this. And they basically said, your comment was to save space and you're probably actually taking space away. So that was from an older other ed specs, and they said, we disagree with it. So I took it out. Sorry. iPad storage cart for charging station was not there. There's the classroom. There's the door comment again. Comments and water bottle filler stations. Same workstation. Again, iPad charging station. Classrooms. Again, all repetitive here. This was one that you probably need to weigh in on. The question was, based upon your enrollment study, should you have that? What number of coat and storage cubbies within the classroom should you have? And the professionals disagreed on this part. Mine is kind of in the middle. One thought maybe you should have fewer based upon the number of students that are projected. The other one thought, well, the maximum you have in your policy is 25, and that's what you should have. So your classroom policy says your classes won't be larger than more than 25 students. I thought 22 was a safe number. That's just talking about the number of cubbies in the classroom. You can weigh in on that once we get to comments. Okay. Two circuit lighting with occupancy sensors. They added that throughout. There's the workstation comment again. Let me scroll left. Countertops, water billers, same thing. Occupancy centers, that's the same. Solid countertops, occupancy sense. Okay. This was a question of, wow, you're putting a lot of furniture in one small room. This is for, and sorry, Donna, I'm on like page 18. This is for a resource room. And the comment was, there's no way you're going to fit a table and 4 adult chairs and 4 elementary chairs in there. And so it said, just clean it up. If you mean you're either going to do 4 adult chairs, meaning middle school side, or 1 adult chair and 3 elementary student chairs, that's what you would do. And this depends on the location. So obviously, if it's near the middle school section, you would have adult chairs. If it was near the elementary, you would have the elementary. Okay. The science rooms, and Laura, we were talking about what is the top. It is epoxy. So we put that in there, solid surface countertops or epoxy. And then the prep room with chemical storage unit, we had a lot of discussion around this. It is not a requirement, but they said there are code requirements about your chemical storage. Just say to meet code requirements, whatever it is. The other part about this that was important was this right here, chemical shower and ventilation hood. I will tell you that we had a conversation about curriculum and the new science curriculum in the middle school level. And there's not chemicals that we're using. It's not really what's in that middle school level curriculum. High school, for sure. The cost of the ventilation alone for a room like this is about $100,000 per room. I said, maybe we should strike that. So I did. You're welcome to make the adjustments. And they also said, if you don't have the chemicals, why do you need a chemical shower? You just need a shower. So what they did was they had me join eye wash station and shower. All right. So I'm sure we'll come back to that one. There's again the comments for the types of countertops that you could choose from. Occupancy sensor, that's the same. Okay, here was another one, other furniture, and this was something that we have to be aware of, and this could be something in the future that we learn. We changed this to residential oven range and not stove because stove may trigger commercial grade, additional fire protection, lots of extra money. This still may trigger that. And if it does, we may need to look at the program in the future and go, look, we wanted that in our program, but I'm not sure financially it makes sense. So we left it in there with the trying to state it's residential. We will see where that goes. Okay. The art teacher looked at this and she said, you need a paper storage cabinet. I put it in there. Occupancy centers, that's the same. She did a good job with feedback. You need standing panel solution, some sort of standing panel solution for art shows that she thought that should be considered, not just using the classroom walls. Again, I thought really good feedback. You put it in and financially you determine that. Occupancy centers, there's the desk, bottle filler, occupancy centers. And again, I told you this was repetitive. So I am on page, Donna, if you're trying to stay with me, page 24. Both the band room, instrumental music, and chorus room, the comment was from both professionals and from the teachers that we need something to play our music through. So something in those classrooms that has a quality system of capable of playing music, but also for recording. We're not talking about a fancy recording studio. We're just talking about getting some level of recording done to play back and demonstrate to students what they're doing. So I added that in, and it went into both here. Stand up, where is it? Sound system capable of playing music. There's the workstation. Risers were not in here for chorus. We added risers. Great catch. We have them, but you put them in there as part of your plan. There was some, we had a long conversation about the acoustical divider because we have the auditorium, but I showed him, one of the individuals, that we do have this comment at the end of the auditorium about if the auditorium does not go through, we need this. And so he agreed with the statement that was there. You'll see that in a moment. Occupancy sensors, bottle filler, occupancy sensors, special ed, bottle filler. That's the same. again, you can see the repetitiveness of this. Administrative area. They had a lot of really good feedback. We added the word isolation in here just because of thinking about where we are with RSV, with COVID, that we just labeled the room exam/isolation room. It works. We had missed the desk for the nurse. Put that in there. Common areas. Stand up, that's all the same. Loading dock, we just added for this one access for the kitchen and cafeteria, that it's close proximity to the loading dock. It was just a simple thing that made sense. I was informed that for volleyball, you need a higher ceiling height. So it moved from 22 to 25. I said, okay, I did not have that expertise. I might have done that. My apologies. Get back up here. So what room is this? The auditorium, we just added with appropriate acoustical parameters and audio visual projection needs, including the screen. And this is the statement that he was okay with. It just, we added the gym needs to include a full stage sound system and accommodations for performances at approximately 1,600 square feet if there is basically no auditorium per the referendum. And the idea behind this is we put a square footage to it because just eliminating the auditorium does not eliminate 8,000 square feet. It eliminates 6,400 square feet because you still now need the stage. That would be a gymatorium / a cafetorium, whatever it is. All right. The service and grossing areas. So this was supposed to come out. The guesstimate is coming out. Ooh, I do not like this. This was supposed to be a different number, and I don't see why I'm seeing a different number. This is actually 28%. That makes me a little worried. That is life safety. This was added to life safety for the electrical power. I wanted to talk about the generator. The generator is, if we do a renovation project at Hall School, it is already an emergency shelter.
Right.
It is called an emergency shelter, and it was grandfathered in because of it was already built. It has a full generator that runs the entire building. You never know when you even lose power. It can run for days. You can go to school on that generator. You're fine. If you do build a new school and you do a generator that is, you want to do the same type of thing on a new site, it triggers specific structural changes to the building requirements, like high winds that have added cost. So I had some lengthy conversations with them about this and just said, I think we're talking about life safety. We're talking about typically, just like we have at center school right now, that if you were going to do a generator, you want to have a generator that can run your heat so your pipes don't freeze. And this is only if you do a new building, new site. So I hope that's okay the way it is, but you can chime in on that. If you want to add in this as a future emergency shelter, we're adding significant cost, and that would be a generator that would run the whole building, and there's structural implications to that. The vestibule doors should be ballistic rated. It was only the glass. Great addition. The addition of a system that has passive means of alerting staff to an active shooter or other emergencies was actually at Stafford schools this past weekend. There are lights on the exterior of the building, so people know if that light's going off, what it means. Passive way to do it. Michelle, you brought this up, and they added to it about heat, water. And they said, if you end up with solar, you really, or some sort of generation for electric, you should have a heat pump, domestic water heating system, not a gas fired. And so that was their addition. And then here's a big one. We were going back and forth about operable windows, and I finally got the answer. And the answer is, it depends. It really depends on the ventilation system. If you have a highly efficient ventilation system, you do not want operable windows, because when people open them, it's going to cost you more money because it's not operating efficiently. That's why Birch Grove doesn't have operable windows. Unless it is a window that is for egress, utilized. Look at that. You can't see the change. Unless it's being utilized for egress, you would need to have it operable, obviously. But if in the design phase they say, no, this is, it's efficient, but it's not, it doesn't matter about windows, you could adjust that. But the comment to me was really, it's comfort, and now we have AC, and that's typically why people would open their windows in the past, and it makes sense to me. So this was added. It's just the portrait of the graduate graphic, because that was referenced in the document. This was added. This is just the enrollment projection, and that is the 45 pages of lots of work. You're muted, Michelle.
Thank you, Phil. That was a tremendous amount of detailed work, and you caught all kinds of tiny things that I'm glad we had lots of people putting their eyes on it. I'm sure that people have lots of different comments on different pieces related to this, but remember, we're hoping to vote on this tonight. Was there anything in here that you don't understand and would affect the way you vote, and you need additional information on this in order to vote on it? A lot of this was pretty self-explanatory, so I don't want us to comment on it, only if there's questions or clarification. Donna.
Having worked in an office that had lights that turn off automatically when they don't sense movement, it is quite frustrating when you're reading and you're deep in thought, and all of a sudden you have to flap your arms like a large bird so that the lights can go back on. So that being said, will these sensors have an off switch so somebody can choose not to have them activated?
I think we can pick and choose the locations we put that in, but yeah, I think mainly the idea is that when you leave classrooms at night and people, if they leave their lights on or they go to a meeting, that it shuts them down. But you can pick the time frame of how much time you want that to be on, before there's no movement, that's when they shut down. I don't know if there's a switch on those, but in the design phase, we can definitely dictate. If we get to that point, we can definitely dictate how we want that to be in each of those spaces.
The other question I had when I was looking through is, it's on my page 6 on the site where it talks about the fields, and it talks about turfed fields. Turfed fields? There's no T in it. Any case. Correct.
Right there.
Does that mean artificial turf?
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of problems with artificial turf I'm concerned about, including increased injuries when people fall on it versus regular grass, and then all the allergy issues. And then as I was reading some additional stuff, it sounded like there was also negative environmental impact. I'm more concerned about our students getting injured and the increase in allergy issues with latex and asthma and things like that. So I'm not, and it's probably quite expensive. So I'm concerned about that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Donna. I think that is something that we do want to have a conversation about. But before we go, did you have additional questions, Donna?
Oh, yeah, but I don't want to be the only one asking questions.
Okay, so let's jump into this question about the artificial versus natural turf. I understand that there would be higher maintenance costs for real grass versus artificial. Are there additional fiscal impact that we should know about, Phil, in terms of the difference between the two?
Depends on what you do. I mean, if you do natural grass and you do irrigation, obviously there's an added cost. It depends on what you're set, how you're set your fields up, to be honest with you.
Okay, and if we did not go with turfed fields, would we need additional information included in the educational specifications that we don't have right now?
I don't think so. No, it's not like, you know, you don't do turf fields and so you get nothing. When you do your design and you get your design and they go through your ed spec and they go, hey, we met your ed spec, but this is really expensive. You can make your adjustments at that point, and just like the hood, you know, I just made that decision for you based upon the curriculum. So this is one of those things that if you did not choose to do a turf field, and you could see the price and you could get the information on them, that if you didn't do it, you would be able to provide the alternate for that. This is something that I will tell you that I put it in here because there's a lot of schools in Massachusetts, even elementary schools, their playground is turf, and it allows them to use that space significantly more. Just open turf, and it depends on the type. As far as health goes, there's a lot of different turf types and what you put on, and whether it's rubber tires or things like that. I think there is research for supporting it as well, but I think that's, you know, information that we could easily digest if we get to that point. To have this, you know, full conversation with all the research behind it to discuss, is this something that we would want to do?
So I'm with Donna 100% on this, and would much rather this read, you know, natural grass fields should be our first priority, but will be considered based on other, you know, factors. But something that says that for whatever they do for the first costing out, we should be looking at natural grass. If we wanted to use, you know, rubber underlayment for the playground, that's fine, but this is for the fields. Anne?
I would have safety questions like, is it more slippery? Do people get scraped? You know, those kinds of questions that have probably been researched.
The whole reason the National Women's Soccer League wanted to move to natural grass is because their argument was that it was more dangerous to play on turf. I mean, we're not you know, playing soccer at that level, but we play just as hard and are just as likely to you know, slide a long way. And anybody who's slid on artificial turf knows that it does not feel the same as grass.
So do you want to say grass fields will allow minimal care and lower maintenance costs? Turf fields may be considered? Or do you just want that fully out?
I just like to take it out.
I would prefer that you bring research before you make those statements. That's what
Right.
I'm.
So
Okay.
I think that what we say there is grass fields would be preferred, and additional research will be provided to
Consider.
consider other alternatives.
Say that again.
Just say other.
However, additional information, additional research will be provided to consider other alternatives. And then take out that next sentence about turf fields entirely.
Oh, I didn't see that. Screen. Grass fields would be preferred, however, additional research will be provided to consider other alternatives. Beautiful.
Okay, Donna, we'll go around to see if anybody else has a question and come back to you. Anne, you had asked, you had a question earlier at one point and we put you off. I just want to give you a chance.
Yeah, when we talked about the doors between the early childhood classrooms, I think we should let the teachers make that decision, maybe Phil, at least get their input. What would they prefer? I think they know best what they need if,
So I think having this language the way it is allows us to do that.
Mhm.
Does.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Laura? And then Brianna, unless Brianna, was your hand specifically about the kindergarten? Okay, let's stick to this page so we don't jump around too much, Brianna, and then Laura.
I was just gonna say, it can also be connected via bathroom with 2 different sides. Some places are built that way. I don't know if it's better or worse or more preferable, just a thought.
Okay.
I think this is the collaboration method and the bathroom is not. But you're right, it cost savings wise to share a bathroom. Question is, as a preschool teacher, would you want to share a bathroom?
I mean, if you have 2 different toileting areas and then a shared sink with 2 different sides, it's doable.
I don't think we should make those, we should be that specific, unless it's.
I'm
something
just
that we
saying
really
if there's
want.
no. Yeah, okay.
Is that something that, Brianna, that you think that we would want to have? Is that something that's, you think we should have a strong preference to having that, or is that something that?
I don't want to connect. No, I would not choose to connect with my colleague in or through a bathroom.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just saying that.
Just wanted clarification. Okay, I think this allows us the
Yep.
flexibility we need down the road.
Okay,
Good. Laura, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had 2 questions. The first one was if Hall goes away as an emergency shelter for the town, I'm wondering where the nearest shelter would be if we have some more of the storms that like we had when we were using it.
So I will speak to what I know. In what I've heard is that Region 19 is actually our Red Cross shelter.
Okay.
And they would prefer that because they don't always have the staffing to do both facilities. I think in the past where we've used Hall School, we have staffed that shelter. So I think.
Yeah, our town did. Yeah, yeah. I know they
think
did.
that's all I know is that I know I believe it was the Red Cross was the one that said that would be their regional shelter, which for some people that's a long distance, but.
That's really not too bad. I was worried it might be more like Manchester or something. And then my second one was, I'm really concerned about having the inoperable windows because I'm wondering what happens when there are problems with the ventilation system, which happens. And I've been in a school actually in Ohio that had inoperable windows and then had lost power, like, there were problems and it was warm out and it just heated up and there was nothing you could do. So that's just a concern of inoperable windows that I'm just throwing out there.
I also want to bring up again the safety factor that if children had to evacuate a classroom, that is one way they could do it, is out a operative window if we design it for that purpose.
Then we might want to include something, Anne, that says, consideration should be given to operable windows that can be used as an egress.
I think it says that, doesn't it?
It doesn't say that it should be, it's only if it's going to be used as an egress, would it be operable? I think it's the other way around. I think what we're saying is that, we should consider as many windows as possible being large enough to be an egress as well as operable, because you can have an operable small window that can't be used as an egress.
Really
And we need
little,
to be
yeah.
specific if that's what we mean. We don't want little transoms because then, that doesn't meet anybody's needs.
And if we're using it for an egress, you really only need 1 per room. 1 per classroom, I would say.
Well, I don't know that we need to be specific as to the number, as long as there's, an operable window for an egress. hang on, I can't see all of you and then see.
Laura, I think, sorry, can I just chime in real quick?
Yeah,
Laura,
go
I
ahead.
think the comment when you get to that is, if we ever get to this, is to say, what's the fallback? If you have non-operable windows because of a highly efficient ventilation system, what is the fallback? Is one window that's operable as a means of egress the fallback in, if the ventilation is not operating?
Working, right? Would that give you enough ventilation?
Yeah, I think that's the question, that when you get to that point, which again, stating it this way sends up a red flag to a designer to say, I know what they're talking about, and we want to, there would be a conversation about that for sure.
Okay.
But what I'm hearing you say, Phil, is that if you were to then add a sentence here that said, preference would be for operable windows, would tell them something different, would send a different signal to them and might.
It would tell them that
you're not paying attention to what ventilation can now
your
do.
ventilation is
and-
not
yeah,
as important to you.
yeah, okay.
Which honestly,
but
your
thi-
ventilation is more important than your operable windows. I'm going to tell you that just from all the stuff we've learned from COVID.
And this is a decision we're going to have to look at later down the road. This is to help them make some planning, but it does
Right.
not mean that we cannot, at some point after we look at it and consider it, that we.
Right.
you
This
know,
tells you that you would be getting options based upon that statement right there.
Okay, I think this covers it. I think we will have to have a much larger conversation about operable windows. But I think this allows us to have that conversation with the way it's written. Donna, you had additional questions. Did we, are there some that we did not cover yet?
Yes, unfortunately. One is, I think that each class should be set up to accommodate the maximum number of students. So when, Phil, you had mentioned earlier about the cubbies, it doesn't make sense if our policies say we can have up to 25 students in a classroom, that we only have really room for 22. The truth of the matter is, no one ever says, I'm not buying that house because they have too much storage. Everybody always wants more. So if there's an extra 2 or 3 cubbies, I'm sure the kid that has the really bulky or the really wet or whatever might be able to use the extra cubby that day. Or if there's somebody that comes in as a guest to the classroom and they need some place to put their things so that they're not being stepped on and tripped over, it would get used. But it just seems a little short-sighted to not match what our policy is. So that's the one.
Okay, so pause there, Donna. Does anybody have strong opinions different than that? Okay, so I think we're in agreement with the 25, not the 22.
Would I match the furniture?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
Anne?
I believe we had talked about the middle school having outdoor lockery kind of things in the hall outside the classrooms. Is that included, Phil?
There, yep, it's there.
Okay, so they have a little different model
Right,
outside.
that's the cubbies, right.
Yeah, I think we have to be really careful that they're functional, to be sure that a backpack, a full backpack fits and coats fit. So we really have to think about, a really practical dimension, but we can do that later down the
Nope,
road.
it's already in here. We're good.
Okay.
Donna, back to you.
I need to be enlightened about sinks. It just seems to me that we're putting a whole lot of sinks in classrooms that probably don't need them. I understand having the water bottle filling station, but the intervention math and ELA room, it just seems like there's certain places that sinks don't make any sense. So I don't quite know why we have to have them. It would.
Okay, so Tracy, I saw your hands up. You have an opinion about sinks. Let us know what you're thinking.
I sure do, because I work with K-4. And those kindergartners come upstairs or the kid comes from their classroom, they just had snack. The first thing they do when they walk in our classroom is wash their hands because they're touching our shared materials that go between students. Sometimes on a daily basis. One group might use them, then the next group uses them soon after. And like yesterday, when I had a kid who was coughing a lot all over everything, I actually washed the book with a wipe, like a sanitizing wipe, because somebody's going to touch that book in a few minutes. So, and you never know when you're going to need to wash your hands, especially with all of the allergies that are around. So as an interventionist, please put one in their rooms.
Brianna, I see your hand up too.
Yeah, germs, ew. And also sometimes these interventionists might be using materials that are sticky or messy or have to get washed off, like paint or other putties, sand, whatever. So they might have materials in there that need to get washed off of body parts and like things like paintbrushes too.
I'll speak from someone who's in a different type of an office, but we do not have a sink and we have to go into another space to use the sink, that it's very disruptive. And you have to, if I were supervising or had other children there, you don't always have a sub who can like step in if you as the teacher needs to wash up or wash your hands. So I think it prevents some classroom disruption. It's not only a convenience, I think it's really useful.
Okay, I will accept that. The other question related to the sinks is there a reason we're not using a full stainless steel top where the sink's built in, you've got the whatever the counter around, they've got to be so much easier to clean, and then you don't have, I'm just thinking about professional kitchens, then you don't have that area between where the sink is and the counter that gets really goopy and is hard to clean. I would think that it would be sturdier and easier to maintain.
So is stainless steel considered solid surface, or is that solid surface meaning Corian?
I don't know. I gotta lean on the professional feedback I got on this one and just say they said you really should have solid surface countertops. And they did have me separate out in the steam room stainless steel, so I have to assume they're separate. Epoxy is a solid surface countertop, but it's a little different than Corian, obviously. But those are the three that they named for durability.
Corian, we should not list Corian in there. It's a brand name and not a
Yeah.
description. But solid surface means that type of, not just something that lays on top, but something that is all the way through. So if there's a scratch, it's
Steam.
Donna, I suspect there's two reasons for that. One is that is one of cost, that they may go with solid countertops because their cost. But I think I think it would not be a big deal for us to say right as we have here, stainless steel or epoxy may be considered. I think if we use that language throughout, it's consistent and we can use whatever we come up with. If we got a great deal on stainless steel sinks, because that's what it is, it may be considered, and we should just use that same language throughout the entire document. What do people think about that? Brianna, I see your hand up. You have is this on sinks?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. You can tell I spend a lot of my professional life monitoring small people in bathrooms. So I'm always thinking about them.
It's an important job, Brianna.
I didn't realize I spent so much time in there. Does it have to say, should it say anywhere that the toilet itself is separate and private from the sinks area? I think that's really important. I don't know if it needs to be said in there.
No, because you'll do that in design phase. You won't do that here.
Okay.
So is
You're
there
just basically saying that it needs to have a bathroom.
so could we use this language on description of the sinks throughout? Phil, would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine by me. I'm just gonna make it red for now and that final
Yeah.
change, and that will
Yeah.
tell me that it's throughout.
Okay. Okay, additional questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, Donna.
And I kind of said something to Phil earlier today. I didn't have time to get all my questions together ahead of time. But when we talk about lighting, I understand we want as much natural light as possible. But when it says soft color lighting, for example, on page 17, I think it's pretty consistent throughout the whole thing. And that way, I did a little reading, and it seems like white and blue lighting is best for academic settings, keeping people alert. And that way, yellow lighting is better for like what you'd want in, say, your bedroom or someplace that's more of a relaxing environment. So I don't know if we need to be more specific about the color of the lighting, or just say as whatever lighting would be appropriate to stimulate learning.
Donna, I actually asked Scott Pellman that today about the lighting. And one of the things he said was you would do that in design, and he would expect that as part of design. Lighting is just one example, that you would get all sorts of research, flooring, what type of tile is, what do you paint your walls with it? If it's something that's going to be a little more soundproofing, all of those things you would do in your design phase. And same thing with like ceiling tiles, all of those things would be part of that design phase. And he said lighting would be one of those. And you're right, there's certain lights that we would probably consider to be a little bit different in an auditorium versus a gym versus a classroom versus an office. Obviously natural light is best, but he said there is research behind just like a lot of these things. And he would expect that would be presented as part of this design phase. And if they were part of it, he would absolutely bring that up.
Yeah, there's a whole additional level of detail that while this feels really detailed, we've only begun to scratch the surface on detail.
Well, and I just want to make sure they don't necessarily have to be answered now, but that and I'm sure there's a billion more questions from other people, that they just get kind of on our list so that we think about them. The other thing, and since we're right here on the spot where it talks about this Promethean boards, there was a section that said, Promethean board or something equivalent. I was under the impression that all our Promethean boards would be able to be moved to the renovated or the new building.
So yes, if it's in 5 years, these boards might be outdated. And so what you do is you put some things in your red spec, and when you make decisions, you might say, hey, this is something that we're actually going to move across. It's still in really good shape. And that's exactly what you would do. But you want it in your ed spec, because if it's not, and it's not in your ed spec, as part of your FF&E, it's not reimbursable. Only a portion of your things you bring in are reimbursable. And so some things you might say, look at this is I just bought this brand, Promethean board a year ago. We're going to bring it. You can do that, but you have to have it in your ed spec to be able to justify it if it's something in the future that you do buy and it's reimbursable.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The other thing I was looking at under visual arts, so it's page 23. It only talks about having 4 easels. That doesn't seem like that's enough for a classroom. I mean, if we're having up to, even now, we typically have, 17 to 20 kids or 15 to 20 kids. It's under visual arts, special needs equipment.
I think, Donna, that comes from the amount of space that an easel actually takes up, that you wouldn't really ever have Remember that most easels are double-sided, so that's 8 students, but you wouldn't have all of them painting at easels all at the same time. Otherwise, you'd need, you know, a room 3 times the size of what it is.
Oh, so these are double-sided.
We
Yeah.
can write that in.
Want to say double-sided?
I was thinking along the lines of, you know, if there's some floor ones, I'm guessing that the tables would be able to accommodate the tabletop versions.
They're not sturdy enough really for kids to use. You have to use the big floor easels that are sturdy, and they're just chunky. You know, if we were talking about this for, you know, 14-year-olds,
Well,
I feel differently than I would for the 8-year-olds. So,
well, this is our K through 8 though, right? So
right, but I'm pretty sure that these, because the way it says the sturdy wooden easels, you could use it either way. You wouldn't want to have, you know, buy a whole bunch of separate easels. Most painting can be done on a flat surface. You don't have to paint up, you can paint flat. So go ahead, Ann.
Are these separate from teacher easels where they have big chart paper and they write? These are separate than
This
that?
isn't easels, this is art easels where
This
you
is
put your
strictly
painting
art.
up and you paint on a slant or an up and down.
Yeah.
Okay, but we have teacher easels also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
very good.
This is specifically about the visual arts. So I think that it depends a lot on the curriculum too. If your art teacher has looked at this and she obviously caught 1 or 2 things that were wrong, and
She
you
caught
know,
that one too.
yeah. So if she did not say, I wish I had more easels, then I think we have to honor her, you know.
She did, and I did not have a time to have a conversation with her, but what I would say was about space. And the thing that I heard loud and clear in my conversations with the professionals was about some of these items are great, but you also have to realize you need storage for these things. And you know, sometimes what you have now for storage, like we were talking about understage storage, might work great now, but when you actually have to have it sprinklered and you have to, it's only 2 feet high instead of 3 feet high, those changes matter. Storing easels that are not used all the time, that would be a concern for me in a room that is going to be smaller than what she has now. And so, you know, if this is done, right, if this is built, but I think that's something, Donna, that we could always add in the future in a budget. If we were like, hey, it's working and we want more, you could do it.
do we have, I know right now we have some storage for like the tents. Something like an easel, would that be able to be seasonally stored in that kind of storage facility?
She has this and storage in here, but there's actually and had this conversation with Scott, is that there's actually less storage in these in a newer building, just because the square footage it eats up. It's a killer. Like the garage, they have at center and the outdoor space, and they have a full older under, you know, below grade classroom that they use as storage at Hall. Storage is going to be really hard in these spaces, and they just eat up so much room.
And we're gonna have to use that more efficiently than we have before. We'll have to use up every square inch of where we
For
can.
sure.
Right.
So my next question is on page 28. So Brianna enlightened me about why kidney-shaped tables are important, so I get it. But for the health room, which I thought was only going to be for the older kids, because the younger kids don't change classes, we've got a kidney-shaped table with 5 chairs, plus 6 student tables with up to 22 chairs. Well, now we're going to make it 25 chairs. The numbers just didn't seem to make sense. Like if you had 22 kids at 6 tables, it's like less than 4 kids at a table. I was a little confused about this. And I didn't know why we were mixing the kidney shapes with the regular, tables, which I'm assuming are either would be rectangles. And that, because it just seems like for the older kids, if you've got a funky shaped table, the kids on the end kind of get a little left out because they're not necessarily dealing with a teacher like the younger kids are.
Anne?
I could see continuing to use a kidney-shaped table for instruction at the middle school level too. If you have a group of kids doing a book talk with the teacher participating, that's a great way to involve children with a lot of direct contact with the teacher and each other.
Is that going to happen in a health room? Without knowing the curriculum, I can't answer the question. I'm just thinking, I'm looking at a health room and I'm seeing it just didn't seem to make sense to me.
It should probably happen in every room that we have that kind of engagement. Brianna?
Yeah, I think that's the same thing I was going to say, and particularly in health, where you're going to talk about all kinds of health, behavioral, mental, emotional, and physical. Those are some intimate conversations you might be having with your students, and they might feel more comfortable in a smaller setting at a table. So I think that's important to have there.
So can the room hold 7 tables? It's only 800 square feet.
Yes, they're not like tables that you're talking about 4 kids per table. They're smaller tables. And it's or the adjustable student desks for flexible groupings. So yes, it could.
Okay, and then my what I think is going to be my last is I really think that we need to eliminate the auditorium. I mean, we've got 44% of our elementary school kids and 36% of our middle school kids on free or reduced lunch. And with everything that's going on in the world at large, I think that it's not prudent to do a full-blown, to ask the town for a full-blown auditorium. I'm 100% in favor of, on those special occasions where they want to do something big, renting out Holland High School or something like that. But the cost to build it, maintain it, furnish it, it's not going to have the same flexibility. I mean, I would expect that an official auditorium, the seats would be fixed and not movable. That it's a lot of space and a lot of money, but not necessarily a lot of use. So I think that should be removed from these ed specs.
Okay, Donna, that's not specifically a question. That's your opinion on a piece of this that we have discussed before to some degree. And I believe that the way we had set this up allowed us to have it be considered as a separate piece. Is that the way? Anne, can you address that?
Yes, and I believe when we go to referendum, the voters will be offered the option of with or without an auditorium. So they will have a chance to, express their own opinion through their vote. Am I correct, Phil? Is that how you see it?
So right now, your what you put forward was a pre-K through 8th grade building with an auditorium, I believe is on a new site. And I think once you get public feedback, as that starts to come in, I think we've been pretty transparent about that could be an additional option, and whether that's a renovation or a new school on a new site, that could be an optional question. Should this pass, you're not at that point as a board yet if you wanted to adjust it, you could adjust it now, but you don't have to do that yet. But you're the one in the end, once you get information in, if you are not happy with it, it stops there. The Board of Ed is the one that drives the ed spec, and that's part of the ed spec right now. You would have to, if you wanted to take it out now, you would take it out now, change your square footage. If you said, let's leave it in and see until what the public thinks and then make an adjustment later, you absolutely could do that. And there's definitely layers of ed specs, meaning if you looked at Mansfield's, theirs were approved several times. It's because they made changes such as that. So it's something you could do in the future. It doesn't have to be today. But it's, when it comes down to cost and it's like, okay, how much is it going to cost? If people are saying they're going to support the project, but without that, that's something the board has to weigh in on.
Do we have anything in, like, I did not see, I know we mentioned the portrait of a graduate. In my memory, I did not recall voting on the final portrait of a graduate. Have we done that? Or is it still in process?
No, it's not typically something a board would vote on. You might be agreeing on what the concepts are, but it's still, or the overall items, communication, collaboration, things like that. It's something that is driven by the teachers and the community members, and that's something we continue to work on to get feedback on. Are you connecting that to the auditorium?
No, I'm connecting that, like, when we look at this and we talk about whatever the building is, or whatever happens, the goal would be, does this space support the educational goals? I mean, if we, and I'm making this up because it's ridiculous. If in our ed specs, we had an astronomy lab, but we never are going to offer an astronomy class, it doesn't make sense. So I'm just saying, do we have something that connects these spaces to the educational goals, so it's clear why we need certain things or why we're asking for certain things?
So I believe the reason this is included is because it's referenced further up in the document. So I think the answer to that is yes, it's in here, and that's why we included it as an attachment. Do you think we need a stronger? I don't think ed specs typically are not, don't have the full justification as for why you want to do everything. It's not a treatise. It's the details of what we think we need to do to accomplish that. It's kind of the underpinning of everything that we're doing. The whole reason we're doing ed specs is because we want to provide high quality education for our students. So I think that there are going to have to be, from the school building committee, a lot of communications about what their proposals are. That's really not our task. Our task is to come up with what would any project need in order to provide this high quality education. Anne?
And I think that it supports 21st century learning, which we mention a few times throughout the document. Those are all the parts of 21st century learning.
Right. High quality could be interpreted any number of different ways. 21st century learning is a little bit more specific. You could write a 20-page paper on exactly what that looks like, but I think our focus here is to be specifically, what are the nuts and bolts we think it takes to do that. Donna, do you think this document is confusing in some way because it doesn't have more of that?
I think that one of the things, like we've mentioned the portrait of a graduate, but all right, so I got the 44 pages, so maybe something didn't come through to me, but it never spells out the portrait of a graduate. So I think that's kind of missing. I thought it would be attached.
It is attached. Maybe it's not in, it wasn't attached in that version.
But I don't think that
Just the graphic.
Yeah, I don't think the cute graphic really does it justice.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You think the graphic doesn't have enough information in it?
Yeah, I mean, it just, and not that it's I think it just kind of falls short on what it needs.
I don't think that should be a consideration for this version. I think that if we do additional information, we want to consider that, but I don't think that's the make or break for this document unto itself. That might be an improvement as we move into further communications and design service.
It'd be helpful for the school building committee to know what's.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Mhm.
some of them may have no idea.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think that it's good to raise that, and if the school building committee needs more information on that, please come back to us and ask for it, because we don't, if there are folks on the school building committee who need additional information to understand what high quality 21st century learning looks like, we could provide additional information.
And
Okay.
my other concern is, you know, have we connected this stuff with improving our scores? And I'm not sure that that's been done.
I think you're getting too granular at this point, Donna.
Okay.
Certainly we know that environment does impact academic achievement, but I think at this point, the reason we're providing high quality education is to support our students, and we're not going to measure our outcome for the building whether or not our scores go up in 5 years. There's going to be a lot of other things that come in to impact that. That's not our only measure as it relates to the building project.
And then hopefully this will be my final question. Phil, in light of all those exciting educational law things that you gave us, is there anything in there that we would need to make changes to what we're proposing in order to be able to fulfill the obligations that the state has put upon us?
As of today, no.
I do want to just raise the issue, Donna, that one thing that this, I don't think it says anywhere that the building has to be further expandable. Did we include that language in there somewhere, Phil? Because, for example, should the state of Connecticut move towards universal preschool for 4-year-olds? This is not serving all of those, or 3-year-olds. This is not serving all of those students. And I would hope that any building project we do would have some thought to that, you know, if you build something to be expandable, you save yourself a lot of pain and agony later trying to retrofit something into something that's already been built. And I can't remember, we talked about it. Yeah, that's not. Yeah,
that's, I agree, Michelle. It needs, you know, and there's no way for us to know if a large development will go in on some of the vacant land and we'll end up with another, you know, 100 houses. But that is a prudent thing to consider.
Anne?
I think you'll hear tomorrow night that when we look at some of the pros and the cons of the different model of our two plans, I believe that Hall does not have a lot of extra space. I mean, we even have overlapping sport fields so that they'll fit on the property we do have. But one of the advantages to building a new school is we do have that room for expansion. So they'll be considered, that will be considered on the pro-con lists when we begin to compare the two options.
So the question is does that need to be included in our ed specs at this point, or can we add that in later?
I would like to, I think it's important to include that in our ed specs. Personally, that's my personal
it would not
opinion.
take very many words, and it would be up front here somewhere.
Especially when that legislation is pretty likely, like it might
I'm
come
just
from
saying,
the.
what I'm seeing nationally and the likelihood of that within the, you know, the life of the school building is quite high.
Yeah.
And also, you know, we see schools, you know, ebb and flow, and, you know, you're right, Donna, should we have a larger development come in and we need to add in, you know, other classrooms in general, making something expandable for future expansion makes a lot of sense. Okay, that works. That meets my concern. Thank you. Okay, we have talked a lot about every kind of detail. We have gotten down to what feels like a granular level, but I know we have a lot more to go with this. However, at this point, I feel like we have gotten as far as we can get with this version. We need to, I think, have a motion on this set of education specifications so that we can move forward. If anyone agrees and would like to make a motion to that effect, I think now is the time for that. Anne?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the educational specifications as they are at this current time.
With the adjustments we made today.
With the, yes, the adjustments we made today.
Just to clarify that that's what you meant. Okay.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Brianna's got it.
We need audio, not just visual. So Laura, you win the
Okay, I
win the
second.
second prize. There you go. Are there additional comments or questions that we need to make at this time?
I thank you. I thank us for doing this because I know the school building committee will be very happy to receive approved educational specifications to work with.
Okay.
My question is the school, I mean, obviously Ann knows, but is the school building committee going to be aware that the auditorium is a possible option versus a definite yes?
Yes, all of our options include an auditorium possibility.
Okay. As a possibility, not as a definite, is what you
A
mean.
possibility,
Right,
right?
Okay, so let's move ahead then. All those in favor on the motion to approve the ed specs as we have updated them tonight, signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Opposed?
I oppose.
Opposed. Donna's opposed. Okay, then we're gonna have to do this as a head count just to make sure that it's for the record. So I'm gonna go as I see you on the screen. Anne Grosjean,
Aye.
Brianna Ross,
Aye.
Tracy Anderson,
Aye.
Laura Rodriguez,
Aye.
Donna Cook,
No,
Michelle Cunningham, aye. Motion passes. Okay, thank you, everyone. That was a lot of work. We now know more about the details than any of us had thought we would need to. So I appreciate the amount of time and energy you have put towards looking at this. Okay, we've got a couple of more items still left, including a moment on old business with a potential executive session, but we're going to do that at the end so that people who are present to speak do not have to wait through hanging out in the waiting room while we take care of that if we need to. So again, at the end of our meetings, we allow the public to speak for up to 3 minutes. Willington residents, if you would please start with your name and address for the record. If you're interested in being recognized, please raise your hand or come on the screen so that we can see you. Ralph Toulis, I see your hand, so you can go first.
Oh, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Just fine.
Oh, good. I keep having problems with my microphone. I don't know why. In listening to your review of the ed specs, I just have a few comments. With respect to lighting, I think one of the concerns is actually color temperature of the lighting. The other thing I'd like to add to that, I think some of the more modern occupancy sensors may be able to detect body heat as well as motion. I'm not I'm not an expert on lighting, so don't take my word for it. There's rumors with respect to windows. There's a couple of things that are going on in the legislature, one of which is providing at least 2 escape windows for situations like Uvalde. And however, the code doesn't require it if the building is sprinklered. So that's a bit of a conflict. So I don't know where that's going to go. With respect to the auditorium, it's been my impression so far from our meetings on the school building committee that there will be one question for the referendum and not a Chinese menu of options. So the auditorium question may need to be resolved prior to going to referendum. I may be mistaken in that, but I know we weren't going to bring two questions, one for new and one for reconfiguration of hall. So just something for you all to ponder. And I think that's all my comments for tonight.
Thank you, Ralph. Is there anyone else present to speak? Okay, seeing no one, we welcome you at our future meetings to let us know what you're thinking about. We're going to move then on to the old business item, request for emergency leave extension. Phil, if you want to do the quick overview, and we'll see if we need to go in executive session if anybody has questions.
Yeah, trying to do this without going into executive session. We already have Christine Collenbach. I can say her name because it was in our last motion. She is out on emergency leave. She has submitted a letter to me requesting to continue that emergency leave through January 10th, 2023. It would be the same reason. I don't want to get into the reason not an executive session. So, but if you remember that reason, it is the same reason. It is no added cost to the Board of Education at this point because we do, she is not under any paid leave. And so, and we do have a person who is certified in her place. So my suggestion and Marcia McGinley's suggestion is to request the board to continue that leave and to revisit it at your January board meeting at that point in time. So I would make that suggestion that you extend her leave through January 10th. If you want more details than that into some of the specifics, I would suggest you go into executive session.
Donna?
I'd like to make a motion that we extend Christine Collenbach's leave through January 10th, 2023. Is that the correct date, Phil?
It is.
Second the motion, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. So we have a motion on the floor. If there are no further questions, we don't need to go into executive session. Are we ready to vote? Okay, I think we are. All those in favor of the motion on the floor to extend the leave, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
That was unanimous. So that was quite easy and straightforward. Something to be said for doing the last when we're all really tired and ask additional questions.
Right move.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it. We have time now for board comment. So if you're not too tired and there's anything you'd like to add, now is the right time. So
I don't typically make a comment during board comment, but can I just say something real quick?
please do, please do.
I just want to say thank you to the folks that provided feedback on the ed specs. When you have professionals taking their own time, and I'm talking going through, you know how long that document is, and it was marked up and it was conversations with both individuals. They did not have to do that. Many districts pay people to do that. And so I greatly appreciate their feedback, and it just shows that they care about what happens to this district and the school system. And I just wanted to say thank you for their efforts.
Okay, board members, go ahead, Ann.
I once again want to thank you as a group for spending many, many hours on those ed specs too. I think it's going to make a huge difference in the planning of the building. And as a member of the school building committee, we really do appreciate all your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Laura?
I'll go next. So yes, first thing I wanted to thank all the folks who looked over and gave us feedback on the ed specs. It was so very detailed, and certainly means a lot when it comes from the people who are working in those spaces and know what would make those spaces better. I also wanted to celebrate the startup of the clubs and the number of students, and that we're providing transportation, because that's so important for clubs. There's so many kids who can't participate in clubs when there's no transportation provided. So that was really wonderful. And I also wanted to celebrate the ARPA Commission's approval of the different projects we had there, the playground equipment and surfacing and the educational experiences. And then a shout out for the Veterans Day program. As the daughter of a Navy vet from World War II, he's long gone, but so very happy that we recognize the people who sacrifice for our country. And then I think I had one more thing. Welcome to Ariana McCarthy, right, our new staff hire. And and last thing, because we won't meet until December, I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving with whomever you celebrate that with.
Laura, we should let you go first and we can all just say ditto, 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 ditto. You're so thorough and you cover everything. So I think that we might give you the place of honor next time. Who else? Go ahead, Tracy.
Yes, I just wanted to, I echo what has been said before by those who have spoken already. And then to just say that as I listen to the news lately, locally, I'm really grateful that we, the Willington Board of Education, reconsider our decision year and a half or 2 years ago to implement the school-based mental health center in our schools. We put the significant mental health needs of our students above politics to do what was best for the school community, unlike another regional district that's been in the news quite frequently over the past few months. So I just wanted to say I'm grateful for that and that we are meeting our students' needs the best that we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Brianna, Donna, did we miss both of you?
I just wanted to wish our dear friend Herb well.
Oh,
and, we're
We're
certainly
thinking of you when you watch this, Herb. We hope you're back with us next.
everyone
next month.
wave. Hi, Herb. And to our colleague there, Christine, I hope that she's doing okay.
Donna?
Okay, so I just want to request that we're provided with the vocabulary list. We don't need to discuss this stuff at Board of Ed meetings, but if we could just have them. I would think that it's time that we go to hybrid meetings. And I would like to see the sex ed curriculum and make sure that it's available for parents so that they can be aware of what's going on and opt out if they choose. And hopefully we can have the test results before the December 5th meeting so that we can look them over and come up with intelligent questions to ask, so that when we have that exchange that we are that we've had a chance to look it over and think about it. And again, I echo Brianna's request that we hope Herb continues, to improve, and Laura's statement about having a wonderful Thanksgiving and staying safe.
Okay, and the only thing that I want to add is to reiterate that tomorrow evening is the school building committee meeting at Hall Middle School at 7 p.m. It's also available on Zoom and on recording. And our December 5th meeting is going to be in workshop format to talk about test scores. And that allows people to have a little bit more interaction. It's not just present to speak at the beginning and end, but we do allow for some comment features and questions so that we can make sure that we are addressing questions and that we're maintaining transparency about where we are and where we hope to go with our test scores. So 2 upcoming meetings. And beyond that, I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving until I see you next. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Okay. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. And so we are adjourned. It is 9:16. Okay, thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
Good
I
night.
know.